Welcome to Engaging and Empowering School Libraries, a podcast that aims to raise the profile of school libraries by talking about topics that are current across education and teaching. This week, we're returning to a topic of online resources for school libraries. Back in November, we chatted to school librarians about how school libraries could provide online resources on a budget. This time, however, we're looking more closely at two resources that bring something else to teaching and learning. The first is Bedrock Learning and the second is Massolit. And for those with very little budget, we have included some free ones for you to consider too. Tonight, I'm joined by my co-hosts and school librarians, Sabrina Cox and Ruth Maloney. And our guests this evening are also school librarians, Gareth Evans and Clare Brumpton. Welcome, everyone. So tonight, I'm going to start with Ruth. We're going to jump straight in. Why do you think it's important for school librarians to provide access to online resources, do you think?
I think it's impossible to have a school library that doesn't reach out into the internet, into online in some way. I think the temptation, in fact, what students do is just go straight to Google and assume that that will be sufficient. As with everything else, our job is to curate, and if we can pull through the best of those resources that are available to us, and they may not be the best resources. I'm very aware that our budget doesn't stretch to what are necessarily the best databases, but I'm curating the best resources I can. And so whether that is a paid for resource or a free resource, it's part of my role as a librarian to provide that curation for the students.
Absolutely. And how about choosing what you need, Claire? Do you want to come in there and tell me?
Yeah, sure. So I think that obviously everything is based on your budget. It's based on the setting that you're in, the age group that you work with. In my case, I work with 3 to 18-year-olds. So the needs of the different groups within the school community is huge. So I bear a lot of different things in mind when I'm choosing resources, but most of it is based on cost, requests from staff, requests from students, my professional knowledge, keeping up to date with what's available. I have an awful lot of meetings with reps and have demos and things that go no further. Because I try and build and curate the best collection that I can, covering as many different areas, age groups, subjects as possible. So I think having a really good overview of everything that's available sort of on the market, and then everything that's available and suitable for your particular setting is key.
Absolutely. And Gareth, what about you? What are your usual priorities when you're thinking about online resources?
So with me, like Ruth and Claire was saying, it's the cost of the product's the key thing. Is it going to be good value for money? And what looking at free resources, what the benefits it's going to be to the students and the teachers who are going to use that online resource. And also the most important thing I've always been paramount with the resources we use is the content on the site has education value and merit, and is it being well resourced, some stuff peer reviewed, making sure that the students are getting the right information at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So would you buy something that you would later then remove, and what would those priorities be? So presumably as things, like I think Ruth was saying, something new comes onto the market, school libraries are in a position, aren't they, that budgets are tight, so you have to make decisions about what you're going to keep and what you're going to remove. Are those sometimes difficult decisions, Gareth, do you think?
Yeah, so it's a bit difficult because like I said, I haven't really, I've only just recently started looking at buying online resources directly through the library budget. So I'm always been tiered to using e-resources that have been added on. So for example, two things I use as e-resources, but also in physical form is like, so I've got online access to the Week Junior, for example. So we got the standard subscription, but we were able to get online version access. So we just share our subscription code with our students and teaching faculty. So that's an extra nothing, doesn't cost us anything. Another one that we've managed to get for free for a year is Botanica magazine, which has just been launched. So they offered a lot of school, I think it was 100 schools last year, access to a free digital copy of the magazine and a physical. I know they're still offering digital access to schools, but I am actually really keen. The kids are really interacting and enjoying that magazine, so I will be continuing that next year, and it's still good value for money. So you're sort of buying a small resource, but it has impact on students' reading engagement.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, you know, that we all have that those problems, don't we, where we have to make decisions. I think it's great that you're able to manage to get, you know, a free trials. There are usually free trials, not normally as long as a year, mind, but there are, aren't they? And it's beneficial to actually be able to go in and look and see and you know, gauge the engagement, as it were. So no, it's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm just being, for example, I'm just trying out, like you were saying, the other one I'm just trying out for a year is Issues Online, because like I said, it's I looked at it from the avenues, and I just think it hits so many marks on cross curriculum and everything. I just think it's a good program that might be useful to a lot of students.
So is that one that was originally just in paper form, in a booklet type thing?
Yeah, so they do 2-tier models. So you've so they get articles, newspapers, reports from various organisations and bodies and outlets, and NHS Choice, Amnesty International, depending on the theme. So some of the themes have been like cyberbullying, gambling, for example. So it covers a lot of stuff on the PHSE curriculum, but it goes into other tiers as well.
Yeah.
So what they've done now is they've got the Issues Online, which is you got access to all their current library as ebook format, but you can also search the articles like a database and download them and print them. And then what they do on top, you can do as an add-on, is you can buy their new books alongside with the Issues Online, and you get like a full new books every quarterly added to the library, and then you pull off your old ones from previously. But I thought, for me, for my personal value, to keep the budget tight, I've just gone for the Issues online package because it's under 100 quid. But I thought it's an excellent resource. It covers so much, and I thought for that price, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Ruth, can I bring you back in? What resources, online resources, does your school library buy into? What are your main ones?
We pay for almost nothing.
Okay.
There is an ongoing, ever since I got there, there's been an ongoing discussion about JSTOR. My feeling is that that's extremely expensive, bearing in mind the number of students who are going to use JSTOR. We're talking about 1 year group, and only for a very specific sort of 6 or 9 months of their course. It's year 12. It's that, you know, that key part, the beginning of their course, while they're writing coursework, and that's it. And it's a huge amount budget. So I'm a bit sort of about JSTOR. While I think it's a brilliant resource, we have looked at all sorts of things. I'm interested in Issues Online. I haven't looked at that, but it's certainly one I will go and look at. The only thing that we pay for is Massolit. And it's not something that I would necessarily have chosen. And in some ways, it's not a library resource because it's you can buy module by module by module. So the English department pay for their module. Psychology used to have a module and decided they don't want it anymore. So in some ways, it's departmental resource, but it sits within my budget because why not? And actually, I think it's a fantastic.
Okay, so let me back up. We've managed to jump onto Massolit
very
quickly. That's fine. No, that's good. But seeing as we're there, let's continue with that. So for anybody like me who has never seen it, don't really understand what it is all about, can you give us a brief description about what Massolit actually is? Okay,
so it's video lectures, and they are based on the curriculum. So they look at particular exam boards, or they look at, so they're looking at A-levels, GCSEs. There's a lot of, we're an IB school, so there's a lot of IB content on there. And these lectures are delivered by leading university professors. Or I was looking at one today on the GCSE syllabus, which is about medicine through time, and it's given by an emeritus keeper at the Museum of Science. So they're leaders, leading thinkers in their field, and they give a lecture. Each lecture might only be 10 minutes. The teachers can assign them to the class. They can set questions. Some of them have quizzes attached to them, so the students can go away and watch them and answer the quizzes and test themselves. So it's a bit like academic YouTube, really. It's that kind of access. It was led by the school's access to it was led by our English department, because one of the founder members was in some way connected to our old head of English. And so there was a foot in the door. So we were one of the early trialers of the English department. They absolutely love it. They rave about the quality of the talks given.
So along with the talks, then, are there resources to help students, guide them in understanding what's being said, or is it just the videos?
It's the videos and sort of quizzes. So it doesn't come, it doesn't have a nice set of links to resources. And that's certainly something that, as a librarian, it would be very easy to do, because you could, if I know that the teachers are using this lecture for, as a focus in this lesson, it's, you're right, it's asking for that kind of thing. Our school's use of it is very patchy, and I'm trying to encourage more of it, because actually, as Massolit develops, they are reaching out to more departments. So they're now involving the sciences. All three sciences have lectures. And I think we need to get to that tipping point where people think, actually, this is our resource. This is what we pay for. Fortunately, you pay for it module by module. So, I can add on the more modules you pay for, the less you pay for each one, but so if you only buy one module,
by module, you're talking about
like the department. So
subject.
If English literature by their module, that might be £300. I can't remember what it is. If I then add on history, both of them might come down to 280. So there's that sort of thing, but they're not really about, they're not a one-stop shop by any means. They're a pinpoint of somebody excellent, talking about the resource, about the subject. So that's their niche, really. It's the level of the people that they've got giving the presentations.
Okay, Sabrina, can I bring you in?
Sorry, I can't find my mouse.
That's all right.
So Ruth, I've got the site up in front of me, actually, because it's like, ooh, sixth form stuff. So would you use this then as like wider reading for subjects, or like inquiry based stuff that you want the students to do?
Yeah, so we use it in several ways. The teachers use it in class, and they might play a lecture, and then they'll talk about it, or it's part of their lesson. I would definitely recommend it as a research resource for students writing extended essays. I would say to them, have you gone and looked to see whether anybody's talking about this on Massolit? Because, if that person is talking about it, no doubt they've written about it as well. And no doubt they're talking about things that you might go and find other resources that would help you. It's a really good starting point. They're familiar with it, and therefore it's accessible to them. I would definitely use it. I'm about to change the way I do my year 12 inductions, to make them into a mini inquiry, to make the whole induction process into a mini inquiry. And I shall certainly be using Massolit for that, because it's a really good resource that we have actually paid for. So it's good to introduce them to it nice and early on. And I think it does have that multiple uses. You can set up classes, and I can assign things. It has all of that kind of, then the teachers can see, has the student watched the essay or whatever. But actually, just as a resource on its own, it's really useful in a variety of ways.
Okay, so it's presumably it's sat on a your school system somewhere that
it's cloud-based. So you just log in. It's just a website, and you log in.
Okay, so you have to direct your students to it, presumably, in order for them to find it. Yeah,
and it links through. Either it's the teachers share the URL, which is what their favorite way of doing it is, or it links directly from our library catalogue, and where there is a seamless login because it's all on SSO, but no teacher would have got quite that far.
No. So we need education of teachers. So it's funny. That's quite an interesting resource, because it's obviously something that when teachers know about it, they are keen for the students to use, but also by the library staff knowing about it, you can use it from a different angle. Which, it sounds good. It sounds good. Fascinating. So thanks Ruth. I'm going to move on to Gareth. Claire, we will get to you in a minute. Gareth, so it's your fault that we're talking tonight about online resources. So you interested me in a conversation about Bedrock Learning. So just like Ruth, can you describe to me what Bedrock Learning is and why you think it's important?
Yeah, so Bedrock Learning is a literacy-based program designed to be used by students from Key Stage 3 all the way up to Year 12. Bedrock does use multiple avenues. We use what they call their core curriculum for it. So Bedrock is its main core is a vocabulary element development program. So it teaches students Tier 2 vocabulary words.
Okay.
So they learn the definitions of the words, so that you can classify them as high frequency words or academic words. And the way Bedrock works is they link these vocabulary words into different curriculum topics. So covering a range of fiction and non-fiction topics. So some examples is learn about Rosa Parks, Mahatma Gandhi, Are Computers Bad for You? Lady in the House, learning about the lives of Henry VIII's wives. So there's a mixture of fiction and non-fiction. Okay. So students learn a bit of subject matter in different topics, but also developing their vocabulary at the same time. So the way the program is structured is the students do like an alpha test at the start of the program when they log on for the first time, and they're placed into block level. So each block is equivalent to a school year. So block 3 being Year 3, all the way up to block 12, which is lower sixth form. And then the students then follow a pattern of topics during that time. And each topic is broken down into 8 parts. So in each topic, the student will learn a list of words between 18 to 30 words. At the start of the topic, they do a pre-test to see if they already know the vocabulary for that topic. Then they do a series of 6 lessons, which are linked to the words. So at the start of each lesson, they read a passage of text linked to that topic, and the key words will be highlighted in orange on the text. They can click on the text, and they learn the definition of the word, how it can be put into a sentence, and also an image of the word as well. So it uses a lot of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning. And then the students will do a sequence of exercises. So it will be looking at similes and antonyms of words, or comparison of words, and then also how they can put it into their writing as well. And they need to pass each lesson to move on to the next lesson in the topic. And then at the end of the topic, they do a post-test, and they should improve and see a higher score on the definitions of the words they learn. But the other thing I like about Bedrock Learning from the vocabulary side is it's also a retaining program. So students, if they're struggling with a word, they will, in between the lessons, they get recaps and reteachers. So sometimes it might be that the system will test the student again on a word that they might need to remember and just see if they know that word, or test them on a word they might have learned previously in the program, or just refresh them on the word as well. So it keeps that multiple recycling of learning, retaining it as well. And the students can track all the words and all that stuff in their word organizer as well. So I just think that's really good.
It is. It sounds interesting. So can you tell me how it's used within the curriculum? So is it an add-on? Is it something that's part of the curriculum?
No, so we use it as our English homework now. So so it's our core English homework for our Key Stage 3 students. So the way we set it for our students, the traditional way is Bedrock encourages students to do 2 lessons a week on the program. We slightly do a little bit differently. So we call the test and the lessons elements. So we ask our students to do 2 elements a week on the program, and that should just last about 30 minutes each week. But we do have some students who might do more if they're engaging with the program. And we've got some students who might do 4 or 6 elements a week, and we've got some students who will do it every day. The only good thing about the program is it does put a rotation stop on students going through so much content in one day. So it will stop the student after completing 2 lessons. It won't let them carry on with the program until the next day.
Okay. So this is making assumptions then, Gareth, that students have got access from home in some way?
Yes, so students do have access to it. It's on, like I said, it is our homework based. So yes, they do have access to it at home. So for our students, they just log in with their school email address and password, and they just got instant access to the program straight away from home. And it can be used on multiple devices. So it can be used on the phone, a tablet, or on a laptop or computer.
Okay. Can I bring Ruth in?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. So Gareth, do you, leading on from Elizabeth's question really, do you supply devices to your students?
So we don't, well, we don't technically supply devices to our students to use the program. We advise that the student has their own device. But what we do within our library lessons, if a student just needs a bit of support in using the program, they can use our school terminals during the library lesson to have an opportunity to catch up with their homework. And also, like I said, we've got the facility students can use the Learning Resource Centre before and during social time and after school to come in and use them resources there. The add-on to it is, because I know the program pretty well and the content, I can give them a bit of extra support in using the program if they're stuck on our exercise and just need a bit more guidance.
And the other thing I was going to ask is, I can see how it would support those whose vocabulary was weaker. How does it stretch those whose vocabulary is? I mean, if you do the test and you already know the words, what happens? So
that's a good question. So what we do with our students is, so like I said, when they start the program, they're assessed on where they'll be put onto the block. Now, what we do with our students is, if we monitor, well, the system does it and ourselves, so we monitor the system. So if a student scores 94% over 2 topics on one block, then the system will automatically move them up to the next block. But I will say some of the words they use in some of the topics in are very complex words, and I will say some of the words I've come across I've never heard of before. So it is a very in-depth. So it does use quite in-depth academic words. Also, myself and our head of Key Stage 3 English, we do monitor the program during the course of the year. So we do monitor how the students are doing on their lesson levels and all that stuff. So if we find a student scoring quite high in the high 80s to low 90s, we will also consider moving them up a block as well if they're making good progress in that. So we do have students all across the range. We've got some students who might be in year 7 and will be on a lower tier block because they're still developing their literacy, and then we've got more able students who might be in year 8 and they're actually they might be on the year block 11, block 12 content.
Have they made that association between I'm in year 8 and this is year 12 content? You're calling it block 12 content, but do you think they actually know?
We don't. It's a bit of a hard question. I don't bring it up in conversation that much about the year differences. I normally encourage the student, this is the program's matched to your ability.
Yeah.
But we don't compare. I try my best to not avoid talking to students about which level they're on and what the other students on. I don't share that information. Yes, they can
No,
see it on the
no.
screen. If they want to discuss between themselves, that's fine. But I don't tend to intervene with that and make
No,
judgment of that.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I bring Sabrina in?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've obviously looked into Bedrock Learning quite a lot. I've done the trial demo and everything, and I really liked it. But one of the things I was told is they could do this on their phone. So if they haven't done the homework, they can sit on the bus and do it on their phone. Is that practical? Do your students ever do that?
I can't. I have seen students do it on their phone in school. And yes, I have seen it. I've seen students doing it on the corridor during break or lunch. I don't. We don't judge. I don't judge the kid what device the kid used done their homework on at the end of the day. What we like to see is that they actually are completing the homework every week. So what we do, which is one of the brilliant things about the program, is every week. So we set up our classes and the students are assigned to that class. And what we do is so we set our homework every Friday, and the students go until the following Thursday to complete it. So on Friday morning, very early in the morning, I will get all the student reports for each class, and it will rank them how many lessons how many elements or lessons or tests they've done, and you can see their schools who hasn't done the homework for the week. So we can actually track that straight away. So the way we run it in my school is I deal with all the praising and the award side of stuff to help cut down on marking time for our English teachers, and then the English teachers will focus on the students who have not engaged with the program and just trying to give them a bit of extra support. And sometimes I will come in and give. Sometimes we can talk to the student why the reason they're having issues. So it's one of the common issues. Maybe sometimes they forgot their login. They've locked themselves out of the computer, forgot their password. So it's just that little thing. Okay, that's fixed. We can sort that out. So and we try and support the students. We'll talk to the student if they're struggling with the program. We just find approaches how we can support them with the program. It might be example could be a student's finding the content on the current level too difficult. So sometimes we have a discussion. I'll have a discussion with the our head of Key Stage 3 English or the teacher, and then we might decide just to move them down a block just to see how they can get on with the next one. And it does work sometimes. So we do try our best to support our students and try and support them as much as we can with using the program.
So what really interests me is the tier 2 vocabulary. Now I've had various discussions, and I think I even did some training on reading for learning, which talks about the fact that it's that tier 2 vocabulary that often gets missed, because obviously the tier 1 is your everyday vocabulary that people use all of the time and you're very familiar with, and the tier 3 vocabulary is that very academic, the kind of words that you'll only find in a science lesson, for example. So the science specialists will make sure that vocabulary is done. So I suppose what I'm interested in is how much time. So can the library, as an extension to Bedrock, get more involved because you know that they're focusing on the tier 2 vocabulary, Gareth?
Okay, so just before I step onto the library thing, I'm talking about the tier 3. Bedrock also actually does deal with tier 3 vocabulary as well. We don't use it in our school as such, but they've got a program additional called Bedrock Mapper. So it's a tier 3 design program. So it deals with which is more taking it to this is where you can go cross-curricular, where you can share it with teachers, and teachers they've created loads of peer test definitions of words and all that stuff, which teachers can sign to a child. So if they were looking at astronomy, for example, they can look at the science teacher could sign them terminology or scientific words for tier 3 for the science of space and astronomy. So that's another thing they have developed, but we haven't bought into that because that's where that's more on the more expensive side of Bedrock. So we haven't explored on that side of area. But we're going back to engagement in the library. What I find with from my benefit from you, as the kids see me as sort of, because I do all the introduction to Bedrock, I do all the support and the awards and that. The kids sort of see me, the English teacher, but they also see me as another person they can come and speak to if they've got any issues with the program and all that stuff. But what is sort of been the benefit of moving over to Bedrock is the kids are developing their vocabulary, but it's also because we've moved away from a previous reading program, which I won't say the name, but it's been able to benefit our kids in developing more time to let the kids enjoy reading and building our reading for pleasure environment to the kids. So we're looking at we bought more in-depth fiction and non-fiction books, more depth stuff that kids are interested in, so it does help them engage, and they do find it. I have had a couple of students saying that the programs help them understand words and understand more non-fiction text, and that's also being expanded to the wider school. So we do use the tier 3 vocabulary in subject lessons. So we've built on our school's now built on like a rich vocabulary support curriculum. So teachers in our school deal with the tier 3 vocabulary, but they're also supporting kids in reading wider text, reading academic text in lessons and all that stuff. So I can then show students the resources that we use in the library from using Bedrock, our wider vocabulary program, and getting kids to take out more books.
Fantastic. It does sound fascinating. Can I bring Clare in? Because you know, if you don't have a system like Bedrock, that tier 2 vocabulary is something that most students don't necessarily come up with. And if you don't have a program like Bedrock, what do you do? Is there a way that we can guide our students? Tough question.
It is. I mean, I think that there are ways of doing it, and some of the work needs to be through curriculum specific resources, and some of it needs to be through general reading resources, I think. So
but also maybe keywords within the curriculum. So if a librarian was working directly with the teacher, each subject has curriculum tier 2 words that they have to ensure that their students know by the end of the year, don't they, or end of the subject or the topic. So I suppose without something like Bedrock, there is an opportunity for librarians and teachers to collaborate on recognizing that vocabulary is needed, and then maybe displays of the words and I think there's you can use displays, you can use an area of an online portfolio if the school uses that. Also, I mean, in my particular case, because I work at an international school, the majority of our students are not first language or home language is not English. Right.
So most of the students that I'm working with are bilingual or multilingual. English is the language of instruction, but they all also have lessons in other languages. And one of the other things that we have to consider, and more schools are starting to have to consider this as they start integrating more students who speak a variety of different languages into any school environment, you need to start thinking about how it works from an English language learner's perspective as well. So you've got you've got those students who speak English at home and those students who don't, and obviously they start from different places. They're also using maybe subject specific language in a different language.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that I have to do and my school has to do is to try and balance the development of that language in English, but also in a range of other languages, in about 40 other languages as well. So
no, interesting. Ruth, can I bring you in?
Yeah, sorry. Tier 2 vocabulary. Remind me where I know we've had this conversation, Elizabeth, and I remember at the time thinking, oh yeah, I know what that is. So it's not the hyper scientific or not the hyper specific subject terminology.
So it's things like analyze is a tier 2 vocabulary. Of course, you're going to put me on the spot now, aren't you?
Well, so I'm just thinking that so it's the kind of language that comes up in exam questions, isn't it?
Yeah,
All
so
of
it's not the kind of language that comes up, or the words that come up when you are talking generally. It's very usually subject specific, but it's not. It's usually across subjects, but it's non-fiction. So that's what they say. The tier 2 vocabulary is not very often written in the fiction. It's written in your non-fiction texts. So you are less likely to come across them, even if you are a great fiction reader. So we need to make sure that our good readers are reading and accessing non-fiction text. So that could be a non-fiction book, but that could be newspapers, that could be online, that kind of thing. It's a different kind of vocabulary that you don't find generally in fiction, I think. Alison Bissafure talks a lot about it. So if you haven't seen what she's had to say about it, it's certainly worth, I'll link to that later. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah. I mean, it just seems to me that is a perfect opportunity for librarians to be in the classroom, discussing that. Because one of the things that I want to work on with year 8 is this keywording idea. Well, sure, in any subject, then the keywords need to be things like not just, okay, we're in history and we're learning about the Black Death or whatever, so what terminology are we going to come up with? But they also need to be all those words as well. And how they work. Let
me bring Gareth.
Actually,
sorry,
there we've gone off on.
No, it's fine. It's important.
The difference actually between analyze this in English and analyze this in science. I mean, those are like, they're a world apart.
Yes.
And that is a subtlety that I would be impressed if Bedrock can teach. I mean, presumably it's teaching it through the text it chooses, but I mean, that's quite a nuance to explain.
Can I bring Gareth back? You had your hand up. Do you want to come
back?
So
just to make it, I agree with everything you said, with the tier 3 being more specific to subjects and tier 2 being more high frequency words. What you were talking about, displays and all that stuff. So what Bedrock does, and I can show you. So what we've done I have just taken it down for the library, but we put all the blocks and all the topics and all the words all across the library wall in our library, so the kids can actually see what words they're going to be coming up with. And sometimes I might even I've done it with a couple of groups in the past, where I can sometimes say, okay, why don't you just go and grab a dictionary out, and why don't you have a look at these words? So sometimes we may not use the Bedrock program, but they might just have a quick look and see what the word is in a dictionary. Also just saying about developing the understanding of words and all that stuff. One thing I did, Bedrock has sort of expanded since their vocabulary principles. So vocabulary is their sort of big thing. The other thing that they have also done is they've developed, they've taken the vocabulary definition words and all that stuff and adapted it into a GCSE English analysis and terms unit.
Okay.
So it supports, so they do different topics covering like like poetry structure, poetic devices, type of keywords you're going to discuss within an English language or English literature paper. It also gives them quotations of where they can, and examples how they can use that defined keyword within a literature text, and how they can structure their layout of a question as well. So for myself, I've been piloting this year. So I've just been looking at the GCSE area of Bedrock, and we've been using it within our alternative provision unit at our school. So these are students that are not in mainstream education, and they're in very smaller groups. So with the Key Stage Year 11 students this year, I've actually been supporting them with using the GCSE modules on Bedrock, and they've been learning their terminology and all that through that way to help them with their English literature and language exam, which they're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, I think on Bedrock there might be a free list of tier 2 vocabulary, because I'm sure I shared it with somebody recently.
Yes, you are right. So you can get a poster with all the blocks and the words
Absolutely. So
with their core curriculum.
yeah, so what we could do is we could share some of the tier 2 vocabulary.
Yeah, no, that's
in the show notes.
Yeah, I mean the 2-tier vocabulary's been endorsed, so there's been a lot of evidence by the endowment EFF, I think. I can't remember
I think you're right.
Yeah, so it's the EFF. I can't remember the full name of it, but it's they're an education foundation that do a lot of research looking at resources and all that stuff. So there is a whole paper looking at the tier structure of words and also and how you can implement it within school. So if I can find that paper, I'll share that with you.
That
And
would be perfect. That would
yeah.
be perfect.
The only other thing I was just also going to mention with Bedrock as well, which is another thing they do, which is part of the core program, is they also do a grammar program as well. So they do 2 levels. So you do your foundation and your advanced level, and it teaches you the basic like word classes, sentence structure, and punctuation skills, and other areas of grammar. What I do like about that one is that they've got, so they still use they use fiction topics for them, but they use interactive video. So at the start of each lesson, they teach you a video about the skill. You do several exercises, and then at the end, they use the text or the fiction text related to that topic. They take 1 page, and they actually look at it with taking out, so for example, taking out the verbs of a word and seeing how it sounds without the verbs, and then they add them back. So the students can see the comparison in the writing as well, which I just think is really good.
Yeah.
And also with the grammar, they do a set topics for primary school and set topics for secondary school. So it keeps the interest balanced.
It sounds like it's a huge resource, absolutely massive. So thanks very much, Gareth, for telling us all about that. I'm just going to move on to Clare, because we've done a lot of talking about resources that we buy. And there'll be some librarians or teachers listening to this thinking, well, that's all great, but we've got no money. So Clare, you've made this fabulous resource that you shared with me last time we had this kind of discussion, but can you just pick out 1 or 2 maybe of the highlighted ones that you use regularly, or you point your students to regularly?
I think one of the things that's important is for people to know is that there is a huge amount out there that is free, and I've got to caveat this with the fact that I do actually have quite a healthy budget for paid subscriptions. So the free subscription, the free content that I use very much supplements a wide range of paid subscriptions that I do buy into. One of the things that I wanted to mention, because a lot of people don't seem to be aware of it, is the FT. All 6th forms are eligible to register for free access to the FT online. So it's not a complete, it is a slightly condensed version of the online content, but every teacher and every student within a post-16 setting is eligible to join. The only criteria is that the first time you log in and you search for your school, you have to log in from a school device or from the school IP address.
Okay.
And you have to use a school email account. And every year you have to resubscribe. That's purely to stop people who've left the school continuing to, but it doesn't cost anything. It's something that I share with our diploma students at the start of every year, and I share with all of our secondary teachers, because the majority of our secondary teachers teach both in the middle years and in the diploma programme.
Do you find that students struggle with that kind of resource? Only because
yes.
Only because they're not used to reading such high quality, difficult writing.
Yes,
and academic writing, I suppose, is what you're going to get from the
FT.
FT.
It is, and our diploma students, a lot of them do business and or economics, and so it's mainly pushed through those subjects that they should be reading it regularly. But at the very least, it's used within the classroom environment as well, and it's used it is used in other areas of the curriculum. But business and economics is the place where it's most heavily used. So that's
good. Gareth, have you got a question?
Sorry, I'll let Claire finish, but I had some other ones, suggestions that might be useful for free resources as well. I don't know
All
if
right,
Claire
well,
wanted to share.
Perfect. We'll come back in just a second.
That's
You
right.
might have to give me a list at the end.
No problem.
Share it. Let me just ask Claire if she's got any more.
Yeah, so Ruth mentioned JSTOR earlier and how expensive it is. Now they do offer free access. I think the original offer was 6 articles every 30 days. They did increase it to 100 articles every 30 days. During COVID, I don't know if they've brought it back down again, but that might be something that some people might want to look into. Because if you've only got sporadic use of it or only a very small number of students using it, then that might be the way to go. There's a huge number of open access. If you're looking at academic articles, now I do quite a lot of work with extended essay students, and I also do a lot of work with another project where I need students to access fully academic articles. So places like ResearchGate, Core, Directory of Open Access Journals, I use those and a number of others that are quite similar that give more and more universities are trying to give free access to or to provide open access to as much academic writing as possible. So it's a bit hit or miss. You don't always get exactly what you're looking for, but one of the nice things about ResearchGate is that if you can't, if what you're looking for isn't there, or if it's not freely available, you can actually email the authors. And if they're happy to send you a copy of the article, and I do that all the time for students, and I regularly get things sent to me. Something else I wanted to mention was the conversation, which I think is one of the best websites available. The quality of the writing is amazing, mainly because everything on the website is written by academics.
I know, it's really irritating. They won't let me write for them.
The fact that, and something that I teach, so I use the conversation from sort of year 9 up, right up through the top end of the middle years program and then up into the diploma program.
It is very accessible, isn't it?
It's very accessible because it's all magazine article style. But what's lovely about it is, first of all, you can always tell where the author is working, where they're an academic, because it links to, you have information about what university they work at. Also, if the article is specifically linked to an academic paper, you can normally get a link to that academic paper within the article. So you can show students, this is what it looks in magazine format. This is how it looks in, this is where it links to the real article. And here is the 40-page article with an abstract and with the fully formed journal article. I really like that. And I'm very aware lots of this is very aimed at the top end of secondary.
I was just about to say, is there anything lower?
A lot of what I use for lower down the school is a lot of it is quite American based, things like Fact Monster, which is great, but because I'm in an international school, I use resources from all over the world. But I know that some schools would prefer, especially UK schools would prefer to use school resources with British spelling and the sort of language patterns that are used in British English. But another site that I discovered a couple of years ago that is really useful is one called Newspapers for Schools. It is free, and you can basically search for pretty much any newspaper article that has been published. The only downside is you can't flick through it like flicking through a newspaper, so you have to know what you're looking for.
Right.
So if you know that 3 days ago there was a story in The Guardian or in The Times and it was about a particular topic, you can find it. But if you're just browsing to see what's available, it's not
very random. Yeah.
But quite often I have teachers emailing me saying, do we have a subscription to such and such a newspaper because there was an article in it last week and I've thrown mine out, or I saw it online and I forgot to bookmark it, that sort of thing. Yeah. So for those things, I can find them the article and you can just download it as a PDF.
Okay.
So that's really handy. But as I say, you've got to know what you're looking for. Yeah. I have thought of one lower school and even down into primary free resource that I think is amazing, and that's DK Find Out.
I was just about to say the same thing. Dolly, yes, Dolly.
I use it from, you know, sort of middle of primary, but because many of our students are new to English even in secondary,
yeah,
it's very accessible.
Yeah, that lower, certainly lower level year 7, 8 students could it's quite accessible for them too, I would suggest.
It is. And then some of our paid subscriptions I also buy for primary. So we've got things like Q Files, which is a great paid resource.
Actually, Q Files is not that expensive.
It's not. It's £100 a year.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's equivalent of so we used to subscribe to Britannica online, and you know what you were saying about the American slant. Britannica Online does that, whereas Q Files is British and UK based.
Yes.
Perfect. Brilliant.
Yeah, really absolutely. But I would also say that the junior, so we've got a Britannica subscription for the whole school. So we have access to the 3 different levels. So you've got basically primary, secondary, and top end of sort of post-16 right into university level. And I do think that the junior version of that is particularly good. And because, again, as I mentioned, we deal with a lot of students who are learning English. Some of the features that it has, like being able to listen to the text, is great. And even though it is reliant on Google Translate, the fact that you can translate it into pretty much any language is really helpful. At the very least, for students who arrive with us with no English.
Fantastic.
Even if the translation isn't entirely grammatically correct in another language, at the very least you can start getting the student involved in their learning, and then you can take it from there. And we also use things like Microsoft Translate, which are particularly powerful. Actually, we use Microsoft Translate in all sorts of ways. We use it. Students have it switched on their laptops while the teacher is talking, so that they can see a translation as the teacher's talking. We use it in written documents. We use it all over the school in all sorts of different ways, and that's very good to use if you don't know how to use it.
Fantastic. Okay, so I've just noticed that it's 5 to 8. How, you know, it's amazing how conversations just can flourish. So I just want to take this opportunity to promote my membership at this point. So to any school that's looking for ways to support collaboration between teachers and librarians, I help boost independent learning, literacy and wellbeing through your school library. So if you're not sure how to make this happen, my membership programme offers training and support for school librarians and teachers to create opportunities to engage across the whole curriculum. You can find more information in the link in the show notes below. So just before we go tonight, I just want to ask you all one final question. So if you have one piece of advice about buying online resources for school librarians, what would you finish with? And I'm going to start with you, Gareth, if that's all right.
Oh, that's a toughie. I'm going back to what I said earlier, is you need to find the resource. It has to be going to have an impact on your teachers and students, and it has to be good value for money.
Perfect. Brilliant. Nice way to finish. Thank you, Gareth. Ruth, what about you?
I'm going to be really controversial and say that I think you should save your very limited budget, if you have a very limited budget, for books, as there are so many really good free resources. The one thing that I think that wasn't mentioned and I absolutely love is what's provided by our county council libraries. That, you know, huge amounts of magazine, online books, audio books, newspapers, and I think it's a completely untapped resource. And while it's there and remains free, I think we all ought to use it and be promoting it to everybody. So absolutely. I think, you know, if I had to choose, online paid subscriptions are the one thing that I can live without. In fact, it makes the students work harder at their research not to have them.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you, Ruth. And what about you, Claire? What would you finish with?
Well, like Ruth, I was going to suggest look at what your public library offers.
Perfect.
Partly because if you have got a limited budget and you might only have the budget to buy one or two things, and then you discover that your public library already offers. I know, for example, my school is across Ealing and Hounslow boroughs, so we can actually use both. And I know that both of our public libraries locally offer Britannica.
Perfect.
And they offer a range of other really good sources. So they offer Press Reader. So there's your magazines and your newspapers. And if you go into a public library, you also get access to, is it called Research for All, or which you have to be in the library to use. But again, that offers a wide range of academic sources. But yes, if you're having to be very selective, then select around what's already available to you.
Perfect. Brilliant. Sabrina, I don't want to ignore you. Do you want to finish by saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, what everybody else has said, but, look at your money, look at what you need. Obviously, your library does need books, so that takes priority. If you've got some money left over to invest in something, try it first. And if you can get some students to try it, that's what I did with Bedrock Learning, and their response to it was actually much better than my response. So, if you've got the spare cash, try. Use all those free trials.
Perfect. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Gareth, Clare, Ruth and Sabrina. It's been really interesting to chat with you, and I hope that it's given people a little more understanding about what is available online. As always, if you'd like to comment on anything that you've heard this evening, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat below. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on future discussions. Thank you for listening, and good night.